Those who follow me knows that I never make videos dissing anyone. I choose to keep my focus directed onto white oppressive forces. Furthermore, I share the view that great minds discuss issues of great importance. Average minds discuss events, and small minds discuss people. But today I'm going to make an exception to the part about discussing people, because I believe it's absolutely necessary. Within this video, I'm going to discuss Tariq Nasheed. He's an African-American film producer and internet personality. He is best known for his Hidden Color film series. Like many of you, I greatly appreciate that film series, and I purchased the entire series, and I've recommended it to many other people. However, Tariq Nasheed has used the success of that film series to reinvent his image as being conscious, although he's in fact not. Therefore, he continues to say things that actually undermines Black liberation. For many years, I've watched Tariq Nasheed on many social media platforms subtly mocking and making negative, derogatory comments about Africans, pushing further divisive ideologies among us. Doing so actually benefits the global system of white supremacy. Because when we Africans are divided globally, we're stripped of our global numerical advantage, and we lose all hopes of ever defeating global white supremacy. Therefore, this alarming situation leaves me with no choice but to speak out against what's being propagated by Tariq Nasheed. To not have done so would be against our own self-interest. Here's the hidden reality. Sellouts like Candace Owens and Jesse Lee Peterson were given elevated media platforms so that their rhetoric can be used as a propaganda tool to discredit and delegitimize the grievances of the Black masses in regard to our grievances about ongoing white racism. But those people and many others like them doesn't have an impact on the Black community itself, because most of us revile them and label them as being sellouts and Uncle Toms. Therefore, as soon as they start spewing their white-loving, Black self-hating rhetoric, we immediately mentally block them out. But what does harm our communities is a film producer such as Tariq Nasheed that masquerades as being conscious while actually spreading stuff that undermines Black liberation, and our people listens to him. His constant disparaging remarks about Africans have no end. Sounding very much like an ignorant child, he literally says that Africans have no real culture. Furthermore, that they want to be like us and that they imitate everything that we do. It's untrue that Africans on the continent have no culture. Although their culture has been greatly impacted by colonialism, the parts of their culture that has remained intact are many thousands of years older than our culture within the U.S. Moreover, their culture is truly theirs. Our culture in the U.S. is a result of white social engineering. And regarding his comments that most Africans imitate African Americans, that's untrue. On the continent of Africa, while many Africans are influenced by us, most are, however, not imitating African Americans. And as for those who does migrate to the U.S. and start imitating African Americans, it's a natural occurrence to assimilate into the Black culture that now surrounds you. He has even said that they try to dance and move like us. What an idiotic statement. Africans dance and move like African Americans because they are us and we are them. It's natural that we would see a resemblance of ourselves within each other. Tariq has also made derogatory remarks about darker Black people. Within a video clip he posted himself, FaceTiming a young Black man, a young African American around the age between 18 and 21. Within that video footage, it shows Tariq repeatedly mocking the younger African American man because he had very dark skin, he had a wide nose, full lips, and very woolly hair, which Tariq repeatedly described as being nappy. He kept picking at this young man about how he looks and his hair. You could visibly see the humiliation within the young man's face. If Tariq would do that on video, that he literally posts on social media platform, can you imagine how he talks about African features in his private conversations? The fact is that so many people are saying that he's conscious, and the fact that he's accumulated so many followers and admirers is evidence that our people's minds have been socially engineered away from knowing what true Black conscious actually looks like. Tariq's negative stances regarding Native Africans is harmful to the liberation of our people. Because to renounce our associative power as Black people is to foolishly forfeit our numerical advantage. When Black people in the U.S. divide ourselves from Black people in Africa, we are forfeiting all hopes to defeat global white supremacy. We must never adopt nor follow an ideology that divides Africans globally to the benefit of the system of global white supremacy. Furthermore, Tariq's negative stance regarding Native Africans is like a leaf of a tree that speaks negatively of its roots. That's like a brain that's not connected to his brainstem. He needs to stay within his lanes as a film producer and stop masquerading himself as being conscious, for he is clearly not a conscious Black man. He's absolutely not. A speaker of truth has no friends, and those who know the truth must teach. African proverb. Within this video, I'm going to teach you how the anti-African mindset that Tariq Nasheed possessed was deliberately created by white social engineering. Because they control the media images and narratives that we systematically receive, this allows them to control what we believe. They've exploited this scenario to shape our minds, to shape our beliefs in ways that serve the system of white supremacy. During the Carter administration, Dr. Zbigniew Brzezinski, a national security advisor and political scientist, warned President Jimmy Carter and all state departments that everything had to be done possible within their powers to prevent African Americans and Africans throughout the diaspora from uniting with Native Africans politically, culturally, and economically. When Africans are kept divided globally, we lose our global numerical advantage and we're stripped of all hopes of defeating global white supremacy. The fact is that the white society's exploitation of Africans has provided it with an era of which it has flourished most throughout history. To allow this era to end would be directly against the interests of the white society, especially given that the white society's dependence upon Africa's natural resources is never ending. Therefore, it's within the best interest of the Western world that Africans be kept divided globally, thus allowing them to continue their ongoing exploitation and subjugation of Africans without any global African resistance, no unified resistance from Africans. To meet this objective, they started deploying many propaganda campaigns to divide we Africans globally. The white society controls the media portrayal of both African Americans and Native Africans. Therefore, both groups perceive each other through the white control media lens. This allows the white society to create negative perceptions among both of our group, which produces division beneficial to the system of white supremacy. Here's how the white propagandists turn many Native Africans against African Americans. The media images shown to Native Africans of we African Americans are those that depicts African Americans in an unflattering, buffoonery, and culturally disconnected manner. Furthermore, African Americans are being made to appear as criminals and thugs and as being part of a treacherous, frightening, and insane fringe. These images reinforces negative stereotypes about African Americans and produces fear within the minds of Native Africans regarding African Americans. It should therefore come as no surprise that many Native Africans develop negative opinions about we African Americans. As a result of these media depictions, many Native Africans come to the United States looking down at African Americans and fearing African Americans. African Americans who could very well be their blood relatives. For some Native Africans, the propaganda against African Americans is so strong that some insist that their children, upon growing up, only marries Native Africans. Many Native Africans have also given reports about being told by government immigration officials upon arriving in the U.S. to stay clear of African Americans. Now, here's how they've turned many African Americans against Native Africans. During the 1960s, African Americans had begun strongly embracing an African identity. Many started declaring our love for Africa, started wearing afros, braids, dashikis, and giving ourselves African nicknames. African Americans' allegiance towards Africa was very strong during the 1960s. White social scientists determined that African Americans had developed a romanticized view of Africa. Furthermore, that romanticized view of Africa fueled the Black Power and the Black Pride movements. They also determined that African Americans' allegiance towards Africa hindered the growth of our patriotism towards the U.S. They concluded that in order for African Americans' allegiance towards the U.S. to grow, that our allegiance towards Africa had to be eroded. To meet this objective, white propaganda designers were hired to turn Africa into a source of shame and humiliation for millions of African Americans. They achieved this feat by constantly inundating African Americans with media depictions of Africa showing only the war-torn, famine-ridden, rapidly illiterate, disease-stricken Africa. By only showing the poorest parts of Africa, this manipulated millions of African Americans to feel grateful for the enslavement of our ancestors, because the perception has become that slavery rescued us from the backwoodsness of Africa. This increased Black allegiance towards the U.S. government and dissuaded us from pursuing the reparations we're still owed. Some African Americans have been so heavily demoralized and humiliated by the white media's deplorable depictions of Africa that they'll now accept any fable that allows them to claim themselves as being anything other than African. It's why millions of African Americans now prefer to be called by the N-word rather than being called an African. This is a fact. This propaganda campaign is also why so many African Americans have embraced the false narratives that we're not Africans. Although countless millions of DNA analysis have scientifically confirmed our African identity. Psychologists call this disassociation. It's a defense mechanism that evolves to put a distance between ourselves and the white society's negative media depictions of Africa. All long-term demoralizing psychological warfare campaigns leaves damages to their targeted populations. This propaganda campaign also prevents African Americans from pursuing the reparation debt that the U.S. government still owes us. This is because we've been made to perceive it as the enslavement as having benefited us. So therefore we don't pursue. We see it as a rescue mission that delivers us from the terrible place of Africa. So therefore, since we see it as a rescue mission rather than seeing it as the Holocaust that it truly was. This psychological warfare campaign breaks down African Americans' sense of Black racial heritage and allegiance towards Africa, thus meeting the ruling white elite's divide and conquer objective. The more recent propaganda campaign that's now being deployed is the one that we African Americans are not from Africa, but are instead the true Native Americans. It's totally untrue because millions of us have taken DNA analysis that have scientifically confirmed that we are, in fact, Africans. Furthermore, that false claim that we African Americans are the true indigenous Americans is also designed to create division between we and the true Native Americans. Many indigenous Americans are now understandably pushing back against the claim that we are the true Native Americans, which is create division between us. That propaganda campaign has created a profound division between African Americans and Native Americans, unlike we've ever seen in history. This is all by deliberate design. When two of the most oppressed groups in the U.S. are divided, it makes the U.S. system of white supremacy much stronger. Now returning back to the Black African Global Divide campaign. That propaganda campaign is the true reason why many Native Africans arrive in the U.S. with negative preconceptions about African Americans. And it's the same reason why many African Americans have negative preconceptions about Native Africans upon their arrival into the country. This is all possible because people are like computers. All you have to do is keep giving them certain information every so often, and you can persuade an entire generation towards an applied objective. We African Americans and we Africans throughout the entire diaspora, we must stop being easy, gullible victims of the white society's divide and rule propaganda campaigns. Welcome to the real world.